try to summarize or wrap things up. I tend to get a bit sentimental on last days of classes because every class is a constellation of unique personalities. You've been more to me than just bodies and seats throughout the semester. I tried to make that clear to you at the beginning of the semester, and hopefully I've shown that throughout the semester. And this is true for all my classes throughout my nearly 28 years here at MSU, but even more so, I think, this semester and this year, because this is my final year of teaching. Contrary to their invitations to do so, I will not be teaching next fall. I plan to take a year off and may never teach in a forum like this again. I expect I will teach in some form or fashion, but as such, of course, I think working with you has been much more meaningful to me, more important in terms of marking the importance of and value of what I do as a teacher. And I don't mean my value to you, but frankly, your value to me. So in order to wrap this up, I want to begin with a saying by T.S. Eliot that I've often reflected on. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. You know, when we begin something, we often don't know where it's going to lead, and it's only after we've arrived at some benchmark point along the journey that we can reflect back and understand what that beginning was, even that it was a beginning. And so today is a day to try and tie things together, or at least to try. And we end at the place we first began, the self. We get this sense of self from others, our society, our social world. Self-concept is an understanding that we are separate from others, self and other. Ultimately, each of us are alone, a self among other selves. Now, we try to connect with others, to merge into relationships. And some of you in your journal entries, because I've gotten to know you through your journal entries, through your comments in class, through your answers on exams, conversations with you both in and outside of class. And I know that some of you have gone through relational transitions. And it brings to mind the idea that when we love someone, we want that person to feel our love the way we feel it. But they can only feel what they think we feel. We certainly try to share ourselves, but the symbols we use, words, gestures, are only as clear as the interpreter's understanding of those words and gestures. We try to express our feelings, but sometimes you just have to go through something and experience to fully understand it. We try to make our feelings known to others. We hope they feel what they feel, but ultimately all of us, including those we try to communicate with, are understanding our words and our actions through their own filters. Now, this sense of self is not fixed and unchanging, but is being modified, re-examined, and developed as we go through this journey called life. Self is enduring, and at the same time, quite fragile, both lasting and needing protection. When we think of the self, we have to think of the many parts, the dimensions of our being, and there's so many things that make up our sense of who we are. There's personhood, or the sense of an individual self which grows into an awareness. I am this, or I am that. There's partnership, or our connections with other persons, the bonds we establish which become anchors to keep us steady during stormy times of life. Then there's parenthood, our roles as guides to the next generation, whether they're our biological children, our nieces and nephews, or even the neighbor's kids next door. It gives us a sense of passing on something of ourselves along to others. We also have professional identities, or the part of self associated with what we do in careers, the life goals that we pursue. This is the part of self tied to structural roles and the values of productivity and what we accomplish in society and through our lives. There's also the patriot identity, or our connection to the broader society and our sense of shared we-ness. a sense of a love of homeland and a willingness to defend that homeland against criticism and encroachment. And finally, there's planetary citizenship, or a connection to all people, animals, and living things, a sense of oneself in relationship to the environment and even the broader cosmic order. Now, with all these dimensions of self, it's clear that life is a juggling act, keeping these various parts of self going, striving for some sort of balance between the parts. This creates a rhythm to our lives. Now, as individuals, we weight these dimensions of the self according to our understandings, weighting some more heavily than others. Society, in the form of family, friends, the media, places of worship, tell us that some things are more important. We're taught what's important and what is to be valued. We internalize these beliefs and center our lives around what we've learned and form life goals. But each of us makes choices of which parts to focus on most, and herein lies our individuality. For some, they're so involved in personhood that they can't see far beyond the self. They're self-involved, self-centered. Their problems and joys are the center of the universe. You know people like this. People that are so caught up in the dramas of their own lives, they can't recognize the struggles or the issues that other people are encountering. I think one current manifestation of that we've really seen blow up in the last few years is the whole focus on selfies. I mean, when you think about that, what is a selfie after all? It's a way of marking our place in time, saying, look where I've been. Look, here I am in a place. We've even developed special products, so taking selfies is even easier. You know, the extended ones, you can hold up and take a selfie of yourself. I mean, when you think about that, now some people carry it to the extreme, and those that carry personhood to the extreme become overly narcissistic and self-involved. Now for others, they get so tied up in partnership that they may exclude others outside that connection, push aside friends and even family, ignore their own individual needs, sacrifice themselves to please another, lose sight of their own personhood, where they are so involved in using someone else's admiration or love that they forget that they are also an individual with rights, with needs. You know people like this too, who sacrifice themselves in relationships, often in intimate relationships, thinking that that sort of sacrifice is really what love is all about. And really all it's about at that point is simply giving over their identity and taking on the identity of somebody else. It's not truly growing. For most of us, it's a careful blending which gives rise to our uniqueness. Now, when we partner up, it gets complicated because relationships demand attention and nurturing. Now we not only have to keep juggling our own parts of self, but we need to be aware of the parts juggled by another. We have to be tolerant and sensitive that someone else may weight things differently than we do. It's easy for a relationship to throw us off balance, but other times a partner helps us keep balance. Then it becomes a beautiful thing, a juggling act for two. I'm very fortunate that I have been with the same person, my best friend, my wife, for so many years. We haven't grown easily together. Sometimes we've conflicted, but always we've maintained a sort of balance. And I know that some of you have experienced the same thing with friends or intimate others. When one person's kind of going crazy or getting overly stressed, someone else seems to manage to rise to the occasion with a certain calm perspective that helps that person out. And you change off those roles. Different times where one person is stressing out or panic, the other person is the calm partner, then it often changes, but there is a balance there. And that sort of juggling act in any relationship, friendship, lover relationship, whatever, is really a beautiful thing. Now, all of us form ideas of what's important through socialization, through life experience. When we couple up, we also make decisions based on what we view as important and take into consideration the feelings of our partner. But ultimately, even when we pair up, we live our lives as individuals, even when linked up to others. We feel most deeply that which touches us as individuals. We have to live our lives as individuals, even if we're in relationships. No one can live our lives for us, and ultimately, no one can die for us. Each of us has to confront those issues as an individual. Now, as individuals, we have to be careful how much we allow our culture and even significant others to imprint us with what's deemed as important and desirable, without giving these values very careful scrutiny. It's too easy to live our lives by the standards of others, conforming to what others expect, rather than being independent and discovering the standard that fits our own unique self. However, to have a unique self is not without risk. To stand as an individual is risky. Someone might label us as different, a deviant, a misfit, undesirable, unworthy. It's comfortable to fit in and to use the recognition, admiration, even envy of others to give us some comfort that we're better than others, to reassure ourselves how much better we are or how good we are, meeting the standards of society, jumping through hoops to please others in advance. Look what I have, look what I am, look what I can do. You might recall that one license plate, one for you to envy. And I think that the message there from that license plate is pretty much in your face. It would be interesting, and I never did, but to actually talk to that person. Usually, in my experience, when someone is so busy putting others down, it's not because they're better, but because they're so incredibly insecure that the only way to gain a sense of personal security is to make others feel bad. It's too easy to focus on self-centered and self-absorbed goals and forget the importance of others in our lives. Friends pull us outside of ourselves and connect us to the broader community so we don't become socially disengaged. Friends, true friends, help us to grow, remind us to take time to enjoy the little things in life, to enjoy what's going on around us when we're too busy to notice, to take time to ask ourselves, where is the joy in our lives? I told you the story of my friend Bob, who would often ask me when I was complaining, where's the joy? And that question always pissed me off, always. Because he was reminding me, even as I'm complaining, there are good things in my life. And I can focus on the bad things, the troubling things, or focus on the good things. Remember we talked about relative deprivation versus relative well-being? Depending on which direction we want to look in, what we want to compare ourselves to, we can make ourselves feel better or worse. So he reminded me to do that. True friends help us find that joy, to nurture it, and to cherish it. But we all get busy. This is a busy time for you and a busy time for me. We rush to get tasks done so we can move on to the next task. There's a line from a Stephen King book, Insomnia, that really resonated with me. I rush through everything I do to get to something else. I rush through everything I do to get to something else. You've heard the phrase, life is a journey, not a destination. But hearing that saying doesn't slow us down and make us appreciate life. It doesn't stop us in our tracks and say, my God, I should take time to smell the roses. Because we all get so busy. Thinking of this time of semester and this rushing between tasks, it struck me one evening that each semester is a bit like riding in a canoe. At the beginning of the trip, I'm paddling along and checking out the scenery. Beginning with the class, the students in my class, just really appreciating the beginning of a semester. I don't know what it's like for you. I get both nervous and excited at the beginning of the semester. Everything is new. But it's also a little bit scary, a little uncertain, because you don't know what constellation, you don't know what your instructors are going to be like. You don't know what the demands of the class are going to be like. You don't know what your peers are going to be like in the class. And similarly, for instructors, you are, in many ways, an unknown. So, I try and appreciate, sit back in the beginning, and appreciate what's around me. But like you, I hit a stretch of whitewater. It demands attention, concentration, discipline, and I paddle furiously to avoid obstacles. Obstacles like lecture preps, grading, advisement, office hours, committee work, writing, research, and all the other things that fill up a person's day. All obstacles to calm and relaxation. It's draining to have to be so alert, so on guard, so busy. And time stress management skills are called upon to bear upon the situation. Somewhere in the semester, finally, I hit a calm in the current. The question is, what do we do with that calm period? Do we sit back and appreciate the journey so far and the obstacles surmounted, floating along and allowing ourselves to rest? Do I check out the scenery some more, appreciate where I am? Typically, not for me as Dr. Type A. I tend to have a Type A personality. Instead, I focus on the next whitewater, the next task or obstacle, the next goal, ever vigilant. And I become exhausted, like you, overloaded, stressed, and wondering, am I going to make it? Now, this semester has been a bit different for me, and in part because I'm aware it is one of the last semesters. And so I have been able periodically during the semester, when you're having a discussion and you're raising good points, and I can sit back and actually look at all of you, and for a moment just say, isn't this mighty fine? It's been a very different semester for me. And a lot of your instructors, many of them aren't even aware of this, but it's something I've been aware of for a number of years now. I said to you at the very beginning of the semester that you are the most important thing I do, and that's true. It is truly a gift to be able to work with the minds of other people, to see people develop, to see them connect ideas, to see them challenge themselves to grow. But there's some other element of it that is not the primary gift of teaching. But when I'm here with you, it is different than when I'm in my office, because here I have to be in the moment. Here I can't be thinking of the next task, or I stumble. I can't concentrate on what I have to do later on and still present material to you, or facilitate a discussion, or connect one comment to another. I have to be in the moment. Now, I don't know how many instructors are really aware of that, and I've actually talked to people at conferences and colleagues here on campus, and some of them are aware of it. Some of them just say, I never thought of that before. But teaching and working with people, not just teaching, but working with people in a group situation forces you to be in the moment. So, do we become exhausted? Do we take the calm as an opportunity? It's taken 60 years, but I'm slowly coming around and learning to appreciate the calm as a time to reflect, to integrate life experiences into a more complete understanding of self, a clearer realization of who I am and who I want to be, realizing that growth involves both action and also calm introspection. It takes a lot to grow ourselves into good human beings. One author, Harold Kushner, argued that there are 3 things we need to age well and to flourish. First, belong to others, to connect and cherish and nourish our bonds with others. After all, we are social animals, and we need to build relationships and bond to feel fulfilled as human beings. Second, accept pain as part of life. It hurts to grow. We've talked about that several times this semester. It hurts to stretch ourselves beyond our comfort zone. Growing is a struggle, and that struggle almost always comes with some suffering. Growing pains. You've heard about physical growing pains, but these pains can also be psychological and even spiritual. Third, know we've made a difference. We touch each other's lives in big ways and in so many small ways. Our lives do matter, and what we do with and to others matters. Our lives have a purpose, even if it's no more than to live it well, live it as best we can. Growing is hard work. But along with that, humor helps. Laughing is good medicine. I have a refrigerator magnet given to me by a friend that reads, "The road to enlightenment is long and arduous, so bring snacks and a good book." I usually try to bring snacks, and I almost always have a book with me, especially if I'm going to be waiting in line. My parents gave me a plaque many years ago that says, "Don't take life so seriously, you'll never get out of it alive." It's good advice. An advisee of mine, a student of mine who graduated, I became friends with her family, and her father was at a garage sale and found a painting that reminded him of me, and so he gave it to her to give to me, and I have it in my office, behind my office door, so you probably wouldn't have seen it. It's a picture of a clown. And I smile when I see it because it reminds me this is the way he saw me, and it reminds me not to take myself or my issues too seriously. Growth is hard work. Growing takes effort. Mediocrity does not. We have to keep perspective and the bigger picture in mind. We have to distinguish between the things we can control and those things that are outside of our control. To influence the circumstances that we can and let go of those we can't. Now, letting go is so difficult because we want to believe in our own power to control, to shape the life circumstances around us. This gives us a feeling that our lives are predictable, like knowing the sun will rise the next morning. But life often throws us curves, and some of you have written about those in your journal entries. There's an old saying, "Man plans and God laughs," because life is always throwing us curves. We cling to a false sense of security, you and I. It seems ironic that the only thing constant in life is change. And the only thing we can truly count on controlling is how we respond to the circumstances of our lives. Think of that word, to respond. Be responsive. Be response-able. Being responsible for our actions. We have to consider those actions and the situation and ask, is it worth getting angry over, hurting over, fretting over, pouting over? We control our responses. Knowing that and owning our responses gives us control over self in the moment. One way to measure character is how we react to life events and whether we act with integrity. Doing so is no small accomplishment, but when we act in harmony with who we are, we have a peace of mind and heart. This may be the highest state of awareness for a human being, but if not, it certainly seems like a good direction to be heading. So the question is, what is the relevance of social psychology to our lives today? And what I'd like you to do, I'd like these 3 rows to turn this way, and these 4 rows to turn that way. I get to see your faces all the time. I get to see each other's faces.